career way back in 1996, and then in IT itself. I'm basically an IT graduate. So then after that, I went to US, worked in a couple of big companies like IBM and Intel as well. I was actually working on a very good software and hardware part as well. Then after a couple of years, there was a concept of startups in Silicon Valley at that time. So I jumped on that bandwagon and joined a startup in Silicon Valley. That was actually in I think year 2099 or 2000, something like that. And it was actually working on a very good technology which we are using as these days, which is video conferencing. So at that time, well, way back in 1990 or 2000, it was actually way ahead of the time because there was not much IP infrastructure or internet infrastructure was there. But yes, I mean, it was very that actually really excited me to work on the technology and upcoming technology, and that's how it started. That's how my startup journey started. But it was again, that was not my own startup, but I joined that as a company. Later on, I came back to India. Then basically, again, I joined a multinational company here and started something called startup within a big company, within an organization. I started a new vertical, which is of embedded software, and grew to and did my all sales. I mean, basically, I switched my hat from engineering to sales and business development at that time. So it was a nice experience. I grew that particular domain or vertical to I think 11 or 12 million dollars, and that's how the startup was my always. That was always my passion, and I was actually then I started my own company, which is Gabet System, as Anirudh said, and our brand name is Explore Outing, which you might be seeing on your screen as well. So that is a little bit about my journey. It is pretty exciting journey, and I really like it. I really like the concept of startup, working in different technologies, different concepts, solving the business problems. So that's how it is. So now I'll start with the concept of entrepreneurship and startup. That's how, because I like this concept altogether. I mean, how, and I've spoken to many graduates like you who are the school, who are in the colleges, and I see a lot of energy these days in the people, in the students like you, for starting a startup company, or how do you enter into entrepreneurship. So that's how I would like to have this session in that concept. Okay, like what is startup, what are different nuances, what are the different phases, how you can enter, or why you should not enter into this one. And I would like, because it's a video conferencing session, I mean, I'm not sure, Anirudh, if you can actually do some kind of moderation. I mean, let's suppose if somebody wants to ask questions, can they write it to you and you can ask
No,
on behalf of them?
So there is a chat box, and if
Okay.
someone asks a question, that the question will pop up. Else,
Okay.
all the students have the right to switch on their microphone
Okay.
and ask the question.
Okay.
So it can be, it is still the interaction is less compared to a normal classroom, but
Hmm.
if everyone is disciplined enough, then the interaction can be smooth.
Okay. So I'll leave it to you. How what we can do actually. We can go through the presentation, and later on, I would request students to note down their questions, and in the end, we can actually have a Q&A session. Will that work?
That works. That works very fairly well.
Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper into this one. So when I talk about startup, right? And basically, the way I would like this session to be not just a monologue. What I'm going to present is it's basically my own journey, my own. I mean, what are different phases? What are different problems that I faced? How my startup started. So concept with the real life examples. So that's what I'm trying to make it more interesting. So that's what it is. When we talk about startup, so there's a lot of buzzword that is going on, entrepreneurship, startup, and a lot of people have different ideas, and they want to go that, okay, yes, I have an idea. Let's do a startup. But Startup is basically a lot more things. Basically, it's not just not an idea. The startup has to be something like you should be solving some kind of a business problem, or you should be fulfilling somebody's need. That okay, there's a gap in the market, uh, and you can actually make it better, or there's something which is missing in the market, and whether it is you have seen it outside, you have seen it in other countries, and that you want to fulfill, or you can say that okay, yes, I can make it better. So that's how the whole concept has to be some kind of a need. There has to be need behind it. You just cannot say that okay, I want to start a startup company, and that's it. Um, if there is no need, it won't work. So in fact, a lot of people say okay, like startup means big enterprise, and uh, all that buzzwords, all that fun and galore attached with it. But if you look at the definition of it, even your street corner panwala is also a startup. It's also an entrepreneur. He's actually running his own business very well. So, but can you say that okay, this is a startup? So one of the basic aspect of a startup is that okay, not only problem, it has to be scalable in nature. So when I talk about scalable in nature, what exactly that means? For example, I mean, let's look at the example of this panwala itself. Yes, I would say Panwala started his own job, his own a coca in the street corner. But let's suppose he wants to replicate this thing into multiple cities. Now, in that case, he don't have a procedure. He don't have a procedure. He need to actually find out somebody like him and to start another shop like that. So that is not a highly scalable model because it is completely person dependent. It is highly each individual person running his own shop needs to be capable of doing the same, have the similar kind of skills. So that is not scalable. Basically, what you cannot replicate it very quickly. So that is why the startup means when you're talking about startup business, it's not only solve some kind of a problem, but it has to be scalable. That okay, you have some processes installed where whether you are there or not, whether let's suppose you cannot, I mean, a person cannot replicate himself, but the process should be strong enough, or the complete idea should be strong enough to replicate in a multiple manner. So that's how the scalability comes into the picture. So let's what we're talking about, I mean, in this presentation we'll talk about this and these different eight kind of phases about startups. And one is idea generation, validation, how do you make a business case out of it. Then there's something called execute MVP. MVP, I mean, talk about minimum viable product. And then how do you reach out to first few customers, which is very important. And if you look at very closely, um, and all the students might have heard about startup means funding, funding, and funding. And I've deliberately skipped funding out of this conversation. And there's a reason for it. What happens is when we talk about funding, so there's a misnomer in the industry that okay, funding is that means, I mean, if a startup gets a funding, that's a startup, that's a successful startup. But that is not the case. And when you talk about funding, it's altogether different chapter. It's a different session altogether. What to do with funding, how to get it. But um, the whole idea, there's so much buzzword about funding that I've seen many people, many startup companies who are simply focusing on funding itself, funding aspect of it, and that's why we forget about executing the things. We forget about the main business, but they only talk about funding. And I don't know if you are if few of you are from account background, but funding or investment in any company comes under the liability part. I mean, if you go with the rules of accounting. So we are not talking about liability in this session. We are talking about only how do you create an asset from your idea. So that's why I deliberately left funding out of this session. Uh, s- so basically,
Fantastic.
what you talk about idea creation, right? So okay, so let's talk about how. I mean, there's so many people who says, okay, like I have an idea, let's execute it. But idea, I mean, there's a proverb saying that okay, ideas are dimes a dozen. So ideas doesn't mean anything at all. It has to be there has to be an execution plan after it. It has to it the idea should be solving somebody's problem, and that definitely that problem should not be yours. That just because you're facing some problem, that doesn't mean that this problem is actually for the masses as well. So you need to do a lot of research before you can say yes, I'm going to do this and I'm going to execute this idea. So for example, like how we started this explore routing or the Gabbett system is, no, I was in a company. I was actually executing that embedded part of it. I was heading that thing, but I have a myself. I have a travel a passion for the travel itself. So I roam around different, I mean, country and different parts. So just one time, I mean, we went to that. There are two. There are actually two places where we went. One is definitely both on the east side. We went to that northeast, which is a Sikkim and Gangtok part. So as you usual do, you basically book it from a travel agent, and you do all that stuff. So the whole itinerary, um, it was planned that okay, you go there. I mean, we spoke to at least 4 or 5 different travel agents. We spoke to online players as well. They more or less had a similar itinerary for 4 or 5 days of travel. And if you are travel enthusiastic, so you study a lot about different things. Okay, what needs to be done there. But I knew that okay, in the Sikkim part, there's a Nathula Pass is there, which is very famous. At least I was very um, enthusiastic to go there because it's one of the famous border. But none of the itinerary at that time, I'm talking about probably 7 8 years back, none of the itinerary actually had this Nathula Pass listed in their itinerary, and I didn't. And because I was very much involved in my job, so before leaving before leaving the place, before starting our journey to that Sikkim, we didn't look at the itinerary very closely. And when we ended up there, we spoke to the travel agent. Says, "Okay, this is your plan." And surprisingly, that the famous place of Nathula was not there at all. And I spoke to the person. He said, "Okay, no, actually, that is not a part of the plan. You need to pay for them extra." So that is what I saw that okay, this is actually a missing part. Basically, just because I did not have enough time to look into this itinerary before, or I did not get any enough time to do the research. Okay, like how we can make our uh, travel plan accordingly, according to myself. So, and this people, the person didn't even ask me, okay, like how do you want your journey to be there? So that was a that I found that this is a gap, and basically we had to pay extra. And yes, I mean, we did what we want to do, but definitely it was a quite of disappointment that okay, just because I mean, because we have spent so much money and we have come across uh, from Delhi to all the way to Sikkim, but at that time we were actually kind of looking around what should we do and what should we not we do, just because our travel agent didn't find what didn't actually ask what we are looking for. So that is actually one of the concept that we started explore outing for. That okay, if let's suppose there are not many people who look into the traveler's need and make their travel arrangement according to that. What they sell is these are my 4 or 5 different itineraries. You choose one of them, and that's it. So the whole idea of explore outing started from there. There's a travel business out there. Then after that, what happens is like because we were actually very travel enthusiastic, and I was actually I drive a car myself itself. So I again going back to the same story about Uttarakhand, another state where I'd been to many places in Uttarakhand driving myself. But when this is after coming back from that Sikkim trip, I spoke to a couple of travel agents. Okay, like let's suppose I want to go to some Uttarakhand state, and like how do you see that those places? Have you been there? How do you plan your travel itineraries? And surprisingly, in fact, that was shocking as well. That I think I spoke to 7 or 8 different travel agents who sell Uttarakhand, and none of them had been to that interiors of Uttarakhand, which they were selling. So basically, what they are doing is they are selling a product for which they don't know anything. They don't know what's the driving condition there. They don't know um, how the roads are there. They don't know how much time does it take from place A to place B. But they were selling it like just like any travel itinerary. So that is another. And I spoke to a few of my friends as well. They shared the similar kind of experience that okay, when we go to a trip, it is always we trust the travel agent, but somehow it doesn't come up to our mark. So there are some kind of people used to consider okay, like if your trip is approximately 70 to 80% of what you assumed or what you planned, then it should be a good trip. And that's where we thought okay, there's something missing. This has to be something. There has to be enough knowledge. There has to be enough asking from the travelers that okay, like how they would like their trip to be. And that's what we are doing in the explore routing. It's basically um, that's how the whole concept of explore routing started, and then we built on top of that. So that's how the idea creation. It actually, when we talk about idea creation, it actually took me at least 4 to 5 months to come up to that idea, because idea is not just because I want to do something in travel, that means I can start anything. But I had to find out what the gap, what are the problems, what are the needs there. So that's how you actually convert your idea into a concept. So that is very much needed. Just because somebody has an idea, that doesn't mean that you should start other things. The next thing is okay, how do you validate the idea? And we talk about there are so many ideas, but whether that is a good idea or not, I'm not sure. You need to do a lot of research. You need to do a lot of validation um, about your idea, about your concept. As I said
So,
in explore
so
routing.
may,
Yeah,
may I interpret?
please.
So I saw your slide. You have 8 points in your
Mhm.
presentation, and we call it design thinking process. The
Yeah,
exactly
that's right.
8 things that you just pointed out. It's a standard industry process now in ideation, which is called design thinking. So from idea to MPV to customer feedback and further development of a product or a service. This whole process is design thinking, and we have discussed that. And it's quite interesting that I assume that you got into this understanding through your own tactical learning experience. And while now this whole 8 steps that you were discussing is
Mhm.
an industry standard called design thinking.
Okay, that's a good thing because probably I didn't know the exact term. Thanks for putting that thing. Design thinking is a nice word. I actually didn't know the technical word for it. But yes,
And
that's how the steps it works.
it's an industry standard now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So now coming back to idea validation, um, there are people who says, okay, like if I have an idea and uh, if I want to validate it, if I want to get some feedback, that means I need to share my idea with somebody. And there are people who are afraid of sharing their idea with others just because of the common feature, just because of common, I would say, they have fear that okay, probably if I share my thoughts or my idea with somebody else, that might get stolen. Somebody might actually steal my idea and build a product around that. And not say I would. I'm pretty sure that okay, if you have an idea, if it is worth um, a company, nobody can steal your idea and build a business better than you. If somebody can steal an idea, okay, they might steal your just one liner about the idea, but how can they steal what is there in your mind, your complete thought process? They cannot. So let's suppose I'm sharing what because you can find anything about everything about explore routing on the website. But if I ask you, okay, like this is explore routing, can you build a company around this idea yourself? It will not be possible for you because building something on an idea takes months and years. And anyone who is not passionate about your concept as much as you are will not build anything around you. Okay, there might be, I would say, It's not 100% true. Probably I would say at least 95, 96%. You are pretty sure that okay, it will not work. There is probably I would say if I'm talking about realistically, there's 2 to 3% or 3 to 4% still that okay, that idea might be picked by somebody else. But even in that case, if you think that okay, your idea is so much simple that anybody can copy it, then you're better off getting the person getting that idea copied right now. Because what happens is that okay, once you have your first product in the market, other people will definitely get to know about it. And if other companies are good enough or quick enough to build it, they will actually sooner or later they will do it.
One,
So
one
that's why.
question. One
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So
Hmm.
I assume you're talking about copywriting your idea.
Yes.
And have you done any copywriting process yourself?
Yes, I had. In fact, I have applied for three patents. It's not copyright; it's only patents as well. So, but again, the patents take approximately 4 to 5 years. My still pending.
Okay. So yeah. Oh wow, that's a long process. That's a long
That's a
time.
long process, right?
Yeah.
So
That's
even in US, I mean, when we applied for our first patent, I got my patent after 8 or 9 years. The process is, I would say, in fact, it was 8.5 or somewhere around 9 years it took, and uh, now it has reduced the time from I think 4 or 5 years, something like that. I'm hoping that okay, it will reduce further, but as of now, it takes that much time.
okay. Well, again, what I have read is that it's
Hmm.
easier to get copyrights than
Hmm.
patents, and the legal process in India for copyrights is very strong. So there are
Okay.
battery of lawyers both in Delhi
Hmm.
and Mumbai
Right.
who can help you fight your copyright cases because the
Hmm.
research is easier in the case of copyrights.
True.
However, in the case of patents, uh, it's much harder. Firstly, the research is done by the government agency that is dealing with the patents
Hmm.
before they validate your innovation and give you a patent. And then
Right.
once you get the patent, even then, if there is a litigation, the research goes in the same process. So you need to hire
Mm.
a battery of lawyers who would do the research on your behalf to fight the
Yes.
litigation. Well, in the case of copyrights, as I understand with my friends who are from the law background, that copyrights litigation process is much more simpler now in India. Mm. Because of the
Hmm.
Bollywood. Because the Bollywood, the copyright
Hmm.
process is extremely simpler. The lawyers are very well trained how to fight a copyright thing. Because the Bollywood is one of the biggest industries, and a
Hmm.
lot of copyright litigations happen in Bollywood.
Okay.
So the lawyers are trained now, both in Bollywood and Tollywood and Mollywood and all those industries.
Right. Hmm.
So just for your information, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not too sure about the copywriting because the patent. I mean, I know that why the patents take that much time because I mean, in fact, the whole idea of patent for a startup is always a um, you can say whether I should go for it or not. At what stage I should go because let's see. Let's suppose you got an idea, right? Unless you validate it, if you want to find a copyright, I don't know like what's the process of getting a copyright, but you cannot have because idea comes because unless you validate, you are not firm that okay whether you will execute that idea or not. It, it's an catch-22 situation. Whether you how would you know that okay you want a copyright on that particular idea or not? Because unless you validate, probably might be I mean being a graduate or being a company being an entrepreneur who was starting in some idea, unless enough research on that thing, I won't know whether it's somebody working on that or not, right? Whether how difficult it would be for might be the case that okay now what you have written what you're thinking is that somebody might also be thinking about it. So or it might be in a business pipeline of somebody else. So it is actually a long process. It takes some time to validate your idea, and then that validation of idea you need to actually go for it. You need to share it with somebody. That's what my it's a catch 22 situation, and it probably this is a question for me and you as well. what you're saying is copywriting. Yes, I understand that it has to be, you need to file a copyright. But again, when I look at from a point of an entrepreneur, you cannot copyright each and every idea. So basically, you need to trade off somewhere. And as far as the patent goes, patent basically, because before assigning a patent, if it is some kind of a technological idea or implementing a thing in a different manner, so it takes a lot of time, because every whether you battery of lawyers, they do a lot of research study on, okay, if somewhere else has printed this idea, probably few years few years back in the line. So they do all that research in the different libraries and different research papers. They need to study all those things. So it takes a few months for them to say, okay, whether your idea is patentable or not. But this is for patent. I don't know about copyright. There might be a case, okay, if my idea, I choose something, I might be actually overwriting on somebody else's copyright. So, and basically, uh, um, being an entrepreneur, you're always in lack of resources, which is financial crunch is always there, right? So if you spend money on hiring a bunch of lawyers, basically, what at that time what you want is basically reserve that money for your product development. So it's always a catch-22 situation. So it is always, it's not a straightforward answer to that question. So depending upon case to case, I think we should take it that way,
Great, thank you.
right? So when he says idea validation, as I said, okay, it took me around approximately 4 to 5 months just to validate the idea, because what I'm thinking, at least if even if you, I mean, you can do one thing. You don't want to share your idea, then don't say that, okay, yes, I am trying to build this particular thing. You go and talk to different people when you validate your idea and ask their, okay, like, have you seen this problem somewhere in your lifetime? If let's suppose you spoke to let's suppose 10 or 12 different people, and if majority of them says yes, I mean, this is actually a need, don't say that, okay, I'm building um, a product around that. Because if you say that, okay, if I'm building a product around that, most of the people whom you are asking might be your friends, and this thing, they will say, okay, yeah, yes, I mean, I do see a problem, go ahead and do this work. Because um, providing advice is always free, right? So people always provide advice that, okay, irrespective of whether they are true or not, because they say, okay, like, just because my friend is doing something, so I should encourage that. So that's why if you share with somebody that, okay, I'm trying to build this thing, just to have some kind of a good face, they will say, yes, oh, go ahead, yeah, this is a nice concept, even though in the back of their mind they might say, it's a bad idea, I don't see that. So don't reach out to a person in a way that, yes, I'm building a product. Just ask them, okay, like, in more like criticizing the industry, that, okay, yes, I've been there. For example, what I did, I asked my friends, see, I mean, my trip was really bad. I found this problem. I don't know what kind of people are there and all those things. I try to criticize the other industry, and that's where the other person actually opened up. Yes, yes, I have seen. I also experienced a similar thing in my earlier trip, and that's where he kind of shared the entire trip details, because he said, okay, I mean, he didn't know that, okay, I'm going to build a solution around it, but it's more like we are talking about similar problem in the similar manner. So that's where the discussion went in a meaningful way. So that's another way of validating your idea, right? So and definitely, what one of the idea validation is you need to do is, okay, like, you need to actually find out whatever you are trying to build, what are the competition around that. And in fact, I've seen many people who says, oh, actually, this is a very altogether new idea, there's no competition and everything. That is actually a pretty bad way of looking at it. Because when we are looking at when we look at the competition, it doesn't only mean that what are the other people, is there any competitive product. Apart from that, let's suppose you are building a altogether um, new concept or new technology, or completely new way of doing the things. Then your competitor would be the old way the people are used to do that thing. For example, um, that online travel booking, as we are already aware of that. So when initially, probably many years back, when that many companies started with online ticketing bookings and airline booking. So at that time, if this is yes, I'm the first one to book a online ticketing, that means I don't have a competition. No, at that time, your competition is the manual way of doing booking the things, because people are actually fulfilling their needs with some other way, right? So that some other way is also your competition, because if your product is not good enough, people will not use it, people will actually go back to the older ways. So and it is always a thing that, okay, people takes time to change their habits. If somebody is habitual of booking the tickets online, or sorry, offline, going in the line and everything, going to the travel agent, it will take them at least few years, and there is always a risk factor whether they will use your product or not. So that's why your competition is always there, irrespective of whether there's similar product there or not. But you'll always find competition. So you have to look at when you look at the competition, you have to look at every possible way people are making that thing available to themselves. Whether it is manual, whether it is some other product, whether it is some kind of a jugaad or something like that, and everything that you can see, it's a completely to your idea, right? So let's go to the next slide, which is talking about when you validate an idea, right? The next thing you do, okay, like let's suppose you came to know that, okay, your idea is very good, and basically we should go about it. But you need to prepare a business case when I'm talking about um, uh, a, a very basic business, right? For example, if you open a shop, right, then also you say, okay, like I'm going to procure this some kind of a stuff from this particular market at this particular cost, and I'll actually sell it with my margins. But the first thing that you actually that you will look around is, okay, whether whatever your cost price plus margin is selling price, whether people will be ready to buy your product at that particular price or not. What is How many people are there around you? I'm just talking about just a shop there, right? Let's suppose you are living in a village and you want to open a computer or some kind of a high tech business out there. Then you will say, okay, yeah, there's no market there. People will not buy. I mean, what will I do? So that's why you need to actually look at around your overall market size. I'm talking about explore routing. It's a travel business, so we'll know, okay, like it's a pretty good market. I mean, it's already booming business, other than the current scenario of lockdowns and everything. But otherwise, the travel business is always booming. It's I mean, into the uh, inclined market for last many years, and it will remain inclined. But question is, okay, this is how much is the market size. But if I'm producing my own product, how much or how many customers, or how much is my share of my product would be? How many people will come to my product? What is my target segment that I'm trying to do? Let's suppose if I'm going for a market segment, now explore routing, and I'm actually building a mobile app plus some kind of a luxury tours. So how many people, how many luxury tour, or basically people who are going for luxury travel in this space, right? I mean, because the market is huge, you have all kind of customers, right from luxury to mid segment to the lower segment. The people go by car, people go by bus, everything, right? So, and you are targeting, because being an entrepreneur, you cannot have a product which fits everyone. Uh, you need to have your product specially built around a particular concept, built for a particular set of people. So you need to look around what will be your target size. That will be my pie, and just say, okay, let's suppose, and you need to market that. You need to actually estimate that market segment in a way. Let's suppose if I'd say the overall market segment is 100 rupees, right? And yes, I mean, out of 100, the people who are actually spending luxury segment is basically, let's suppose, 10 rupees, right? So 10 rupees is my market segment. So now you can start with 10 rupees only, and you say, okay, like 10 rupees is for everyone in the market. So my product will reach out to, let's suppose, 2% of this market, or 2 to 3% of the market. So actually, my pie becomes 20 paisa. So that's how you actually you do your market research, and that's how you need to prepare a build a case, sorry, complete business case. That okay, the total market size is there. This is the maximum revenue that I can get, and now based upon that, if I spend, how much money should I spend in building that product? Can I build a product in that much money or not? Because at the end of the day, it's all the business, right? You need to you will do some kind of investment, and that's a big investment. Then you will sell that product, people, you will get revenue. But if the complete revenue that you are targeting is not big enough, there's no point in going for that idea.
May I
Yeah,
rephrase
please.
from the theory that we have done. So the best one of the ways of looking at is you calculate the best possible scenario market potential. So what is the current market potential? How do you calculate the market potential? There are multiple ways of calculating the market potential. You look at the industry. So in the case of travel and tourism, it is what what kind of people who engage in travel and tourism, how much do they spend from their pocket when they go for travel and tourism? So assuming you have 5 categories of people engaging in travel and tourism, and they spend X amount of money. So you X, so XI, which is for each category, we divide the segment into 5 categories. XI into category I, multiply by the number of people. That is your best case market potential that you get for travel and tourism. That in that market potential, you have to look at the number of different players and number of different segments. You divide players and segments, uh, and then you have market potential for each category. And then within that category, you need to understand uh, where are you positioned and who are your competitors in that. You divide that particular segment uh, with the number of competitors you have. That is the amount you can earn realistically in that and when you know the realistic amount that you can earn for a given year and given economic size, you develop your investment plan. Is that okay, sir?
Yeah, that definitely a very nice summation of it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And one other thing that you should always look at your time, the time scales, right? Give you an example. These days, under the current lockdown and COVID and coronavirus cases, and there are many people who are actually working on some kind of a. I come across many, at least 4 or 5 different people, trying to find out a solution that okay, how you can track the people who are the interacting with them, the complete chain, which in fact I think everyone in this in the administration and the government is actually trying to find it out. They are building a solution to it, but when they are looking at it, they are thinking about it. They are making a whiteboard session. They are making a whiteboard discussion. This is how it should be done. But by the time uh, you're actually working, you will be coming you will coming with a product that probably might takes at least 3 to 4 months. And by that time, there's a good possibility that okay, the society might not need that kind of a your product. There might be n number of people who might be coming about, or the government itself might be coming up with a different concept, probably uh, extending lockdown or whatever it is. The scenario in which your product fits might not be there after 4 or 5 months. So that is very much necessary. Okay, you should scale. You should look at the market at least 1 or 2 year down the line. How? And for that you need to study the market, the trends, and the trends which are associated. For example, when we're talking about associate factor, similarly in this one, in the corona case, if you are building some kind of a solution for it, you try to study it. Okay, let's suppose if I am making a some kind of a device which can which actually I can give it to people just so that they can say, okay, like how many people are affected around me, and that suppose that device cost me around 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees. I'm just giving a hypothetical example here, not the real one. But when you look at the trend for the other countries, and the trend associated with this the lockdown itself, there gonna be a some kind of a layoffs. There might be a chances of uh, economy going bad. So the people might not be having 20,000 rupees to spare to buy that to buy your device. So that means just looking at the trends, just looking at how or predicting how the market would be in next whatever time frame it is, you need to say whether your products fit in that market or not. That is very much important. So build around that thing. So you need to do a lot of research and then do a business case, right?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, under such pandemic situations, are there any possibilities there are that number of startups increased, like get increased because of multiple opportunities which they can see under such situations and they can build around that, or it will decrease the number of startups? Because I've
Okay.
read somewhere that post pandemic, this coronavirus thing, the startup opportunities will be increased.
Yeah. So let me answer that question in a very the whole concept of startups, right? That comes around any problem, right? So whenever there is a problem, and this is the biggest problem that we are actually facing, uh, startup always try to solve some problem, right? So I would say yes, there will be a lot of people who will be starting something. So, but again, as I said, idea is just a nothing without execution plan. Idea is nothing when you don't have enough resources. So you need to find out whether, and that for that matter, every startup or every entrepreneur need to find out after 3 months down the line, or whenever you want to start this company, whether you will have enough resources for that or not. So don't just rely that okay, somebody just because you have an idea, somebody will put money in that one, and you can build a product. So in fact, in these days, also, uh, I'm just going back to the funding again. Nobody fund you, nobody gives you an investment unless you have a minimum product, minimum viable product. We call it MVP. So at least for that kind of a period, you need to have your own resources. You need to do some own study that okay, um, whether there will be enough finances, whether I'll have enough resources, what will be the job opportunities, whether I want to do this thing or not. So um, market for startup was always there. It will always remain there, irrespective of whether any economic or pandemic happens or not. So the whole idea of the startup is basically to solve some problem. So you need to look around. You need to look around your own resources, whether or entrepreneur, you need to look. They need to look around their own resources whether they should do the startup or not. I'm not sure whether that does that answer your question.
May I add on
Yeah,
that? May I add on that? So,
Mhm.
if you look at all the economic cycles, the global economic cycles of the world, global economic cycles, 1992, 2000, 2008, and the COVID. So, and also the Great Depression. So, what happens is there are certain businesses uh, and certain industries, they plateau. So when they plateau, the demand is going down, their production is going up. So the asset liabilities increases. And because of that, the asset liability, the NPAs in the bank increases. The production is high, the demand is low, the market crashes, and we have a depression. So what does the government do? The government increases the liquidity in the market through multiple means. So when the liquidity in the market increases, while we know the demand for a certain specific verticals and industries is low, and the liquidity is high, there is so you have two options. A, you invest the same money in the same industry, but the industry is not growing. So what do you do with the money? You entrepreneurs like yourself, like sir, they they look at the capital that is there, they look at the opportunity, they start creating new businesses. And we might see something similar happening in the post-COVID crisis, where the the governments all across the world have increased the liquidity. America has increased liquidity by $2 trillion. Indian government is increasing the liquidity by $100 billion over a period of next 6 months. So there will be liquidity, while there are certain industries which are plateaued, which are going down, and they might just not work. So there will be new startups and there will be new investments, and you would also see a very strong upsurge in stock markets because the liquidity is very high now. So that's how I see. I certainly see a lot of startups coming post crisis. A lot of unique startups, a lot of unique ideas. We might also see change in regulations, which might alter our understanding of how startups work. There could be increased regulations because every economic crisis leads to increased regulations rather than decrease in regulations. But we might also see a lot of innovation. That yeah, that's how I see it.
I think I also believe the same way. That's
So, but
Go ahead.
on the one side you are increasing the liquidity, but on the other side, as sir mentioned, that startup won't be easily getting funding. But so increasing the liquidity will not increase the personal capacity of an entrepreneur to invest a lot of money in that. It would be required some platform like seed funding or any series of any kind of funding. So, and both this statement contradicting each other.
No, actually, Anirudh, let me take that one. So when I never said that okay, funding will decrease for the startup. What I'm trying to say is
It is a
um,
quality of funding.
yeah, it's basically nobody will fund you just based on your idea. In fact, that is true even for today as well. I mean, in fact, it was true for probably the last 3 4 years. In fact, more than that, it has been always been true. I mean, there was a time, probably in 2000, I would say 10 or 2011, or probably even earlier than that, when in India, if you show a nice idea, have a nice PPT, people might say that okay, yes, I can at least fund the for initial product. But these days, just because the market is there, just because there are so many startups, there are so many people out there, and basically, um, that's how the market is. That you need to show your skin in the game. You need to show that yes, I mean, I have got product, I have built something on my own, and for me, I'm completely into the game itself. So if I'm pretty sure that this will work, so you need to do a lot of you need to actually go at least for first round of your product on your own. And that's why I always says MVP means minimum viable product. That means don't go for a product which is high flashy and everything, but whatever the minimum is required, you need to build on your own. Then only people will be ready to fund. But I never said okay, it will not be fundable. But that gives you, even the investor, that gives you confidence. Yes, this product has a market. These people have a good. These people are good enough to build a product. The team is good, so everyone will get some kind of a confidence. And people, I mean, for that is true even for your case. Let's suppose you want to invest some money, whether in bank or your mutual fund. You also look at what is the history of that particular mutual fund is, right? You want to see, okay, whether if I, let's suppose you want to spend 100 rupees in a share market. You say okay, like okay, I can put in this company because this company has been doing good for last so many years. So that's how you put your money for in the same share market, in the same share of the good company. Similar is the case for the investor as well. They want to have some kind of a confidence you in your product, and then they will put in the money. Anirudh, you would like to add something?
So you're totally right that money, there is no free money in the market. You have to have a certain MPV. I totally believe in the idea of MPV. Without MPV, you just cannot trust an individual. At least in the
Mhm.
case of India, never trust until the person has an MPV.
Right,
That is for sure. Because then people can just take away the money and run away and
right.
do nothing basically. Uh, So I certainly buy it. What I wanted to add is, if you look at the industry cycles and what Kushal's question, the way so I'm giving a more macroeconomic perspective on Kushal's question, which is that in every downturn, there is a public investment. When there is a public investment, uh, then there is money in the market, and and then there will be innovations into multiple sectors. And how you build innovations? You have innovation which are public sector driven innovations, you have innovation MNC driven innovations, and then you have innovation driven by startups. So certainly the pie of the liquidity will be divided, where startups will get certain pie, MNCs will get certain pie, and public sector will get certain pie. So this is the more macroeconomic perspective that I'm giving. On the microeconomic side, what sir is saying is totally correct.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have one more another question.
Go ahead.
So, what will be the situation of SMEs and MSMEs who are ancillaries to big giant businesses? Because the giant big businesses are not operating on full capacity right now, and it will take around 1.5 year to stabilize their own business. So, what will be the situation of the MSMEs and SMEs who are ancillary providing products to such giant companies? Like, will they get a boom suddenly after this situation gets stabilized, or it will take a long period of time to like get the business?
Would you like to take, sir?
Yeah. I would consider this as consider the case to case basis. It's very hard to generalize on this one because there will be some services, some product from the giant companies, which will be in a high demand, and there will be products which will be in low demand because of certain reasons, right? So it is very difficult to answer that question because we need to look at what kind of a product. Each product needs to be looked at from the market. For example, I'm just looking at from the travel market itself. At least for next 1.5 to 2 years, at least that I'm seeing, international tourism will actually be almost zero.
Hmm.
People going either from India to US or US to India, or I mean India to abroad and abroad to India. Cross-border international tourism will be very much impacted. So if a company has a product or a services which is actually catering to international tourists, they will have to scale back, right? But on the other hand, once the lockdown period is over, and let's suppose a few months after that, once when the government announce that okay, it's safe to travel, people will actually go for domestic travel, right? Although it will take some time, but again, the people who are or the services who are catering to domestic tourists, local and art and craft, that will actually boom up. So it again, depending upon case to case basis, it's hard to generalize.
I mean, to add to that question, that's very important because United States government has passed a law uh, increasing the state funding by $2 trillion. That money most likely be going to SMEs, MSMEs, and of course paying for the unemployment benefit that Americans get. Similarly, in Germany, they have passed a law increasing state funding by $600 billion to MSMEs. So clearly, the governments are foreseeing that MSMEs will be in a difficult situation post-corona, and the market might take plenty of time to stabilize. There's a very well-known restaurant chain in Germany called Vapiano. Now, Vapiano is a listed company, and it filed for bankruptcy post-corona, during corona, hoping to get money from the German government.
Right.
And the companies are blindly left, right, applying for funding from the German government. So that is there happening. In India, we'll see. I mean, it would be difficult. I see that it could be difficult, but it could be difficult. We'll see how it goes. I think it would be 1 year. It might take almost 1 year for things to stabilize. But then after 1 year, things will move up very fast for India. It'll be positive for India, in my opinion.
Yes, in fact, to add that to another, I mean, uh, especially when you're talking about entrepreneurs starting something, even if you start in looking at some idea now, it takes you at least few months to build your product. So probably, if you're looking this question from an entrepreneurship point of view, or starting a new idea, I think the downtime is always the best time to start something new, because eventually things will actually turn up and you are ready for the market when the things are actually started to turn up. So that's how they always says. In fact, that is true for financial market as well. There are people who says invest in these times, invest in stocks in these times. But again, that's a completely different theory. I'm not going to that one. But from an entrepreneurship point of view, um, you will have time now. Go ahead for this one. Start something new.
Okay, sir.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Is okay. Once you've done your market research, uh, and you know, okay, like you've done your maths, you know that okay, this product makes sense to go, and you're pretty confident. Then basically, you need to now start executing the things. Executing the things means again building the product. Again, I'm focusing again and again on minimum viable product because that reduces your risk. So there's a saying in common saying in startup world that spend every dollar as it is your last dollar. So don't spend any money which is not required for anything. I mean spend the money only where it is required. I mean I've seen people who have got some seed funding. I mean that was basically a few years back. Just because it's investor money, I don't care about it. They spend it like anything, and after a few months they actually got filed for a bankruptcy. That's basically the worst that you can do for yourself and your company. So spend your money very wisely, spend your time, your I mean not only money, basically your time as well. um, Build a minimum viable product. That okay, like what is the minimum set of requirement, what is the minimum set of features I need to put in that particular product, so that people start using it. I mean there's a chance that there's a scenario that your product is that way that it has to have a very large number of features just to sustain in the market, and then that is your minimum viable product. Let's suppose you are bringing you're trying to make a car. It has to have all that four wheels, it has to have engine and everything, right? So so you need to find out okay, like what is the minimum viable. I mean what you need to when you do a market research, you need to, and when you speak to different people, you need to find out okay, like what would be the features or how much feature rich would be your minimum viable product. Always go for that one. um, and that is the product which you should sell to your first initial customers, whether it is your friends, whether it is somebody else. But you you should have that kind of a product which somebody should be able to pay you some money. So then only your complete um, I would say a validation of your idea actually goes into the goes or basically validated that yes, I mean there is a customer out there who is willing to pay for my product, and my product is at least good enough. I mean I'm not saying that it's a full featured product, but you can say okay, I mean there are different scenarios people do it. This is okay, like this is my first product. I'm basically putting it for giving you for only 50% discount. I mean there are a number of marketing and selling techniques that you can do to reach out to your first few customers just because you want to try it out. But yes, I mean you should actually do that, but always go for minimum viable product. And when you are talking about execution, you should also need to plan for your how much manpower is there, how much technology that you need. In fact, a lot of people, manpower is one thing which if you hire from outside, it is very costly. So try to find out the people who are your friends who can actually do some kind of a part-time basis if that is possible for your product. So do some kind of a calculation how much you can do, because there's another big problem that Indian entrepreneurs faces is hiring the manpower, and there's a reason for it because mm, when you're talking about good manpower, when you're talking good engineers, they come with a cost, and there's a social, um, I would say, stigma attached to it, because not many people, at least that was true for like last 3 4 years down the road. I don't know like what is there as of now. Not many people like to work for startup companies. There's a social pressure from your relatives and everyone that okay, yes, go and work for a big company. That's a good name. At least your job will be secured and everything. So there is for every engineer, for every young graduate, there's always a pressure, peer pressure from the parents, from different people, relatives. So they always, in fact, most a lot of many people always want to go for work for a big company just because they have something good on their resume.
May,
So
may,
hiring,
may I
yeah, go
add
ahead,
one point on that? So,
go
so
ahead.
I know two of my very close friends, very, very close friends,
Hmm.
who work for very small startups for
Hmm.
4 to 5 years in India, uh, and then they got into senior positions in Microsoft and Google.
Yes, you're
Uh,
right.
and the stuff they learned while in their entrepreneurship journey for 4 years helped them much more in how they manage the complexities of an MNC like Microsoft and Google, which to me was an extremely interesting example. And both Microsoft and Google actually valued that experience over the experience of their employees already working for the last 5 6 years in their India office, Microsoft and Google. So it's you obviously you have to be in the right place in the technology. So if you are in a startup, especially in artificial intelligence and big data, the skill set that the individual would learn in a startup would be far more than, let's assume, building an app like Alexa or speech recognition for Google. So yes, so this is the what you said is right, because I have seen. I mean, we know very well. I've seen many times that my friends haven't, but my friends who have taken that plunge of working for a startup for 4 5 years have actually upped their skill set, their communication skill set, their soft and hard skill set, and has been valued immensely by top-notch companies like Microsoft and Google. So it's sort of interesting that it's like an entrepreneurial risk that can have a very, very high positive effect of on an individual. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, actually, what you said is I couldn't agree more on that one because I myself actually went through this phase. When actually I was working with that startup in Silicon Valley, I said a video conferencing company. So I was actually working as an engineer there, and I think when I left US, I had 8 years of experience, and just to try it out, I tried for Microsoft in the Valley area itself. I was given. I mean, I still have that offer letter. I mean, I just want to. I don't remember it very often, but just because this conversion went this way, I was actually a product manager, senior product manager at that time when I was just 8 years old. When the senior product manager in Microsoft is actually a 15 or 16 years of experience, that kind of a experience bracket is there, right? So I myself went through this thing, and always say when you're working in a startup, the kind of experience that you get, you cannot. There's no way you can actually get it in a big organization. In fact, just to say another, actually, I have one last slide in that for just for this purpose. Okay, like whether you should go for an MNC or big company or whether you should go for a startup. I know that okay, what a dilemma a particular person faces, what are the positive and negative of working in startups. So we'll take this thing in a couple of slides from now.
Great, thank you.
And as I said, okay, your paying customer is the one who tells you, okay, like whether product is, whether your thought process, whether your idea, whether your product is worth anything or not. Trust me, when you uh, get revenue from your product, the first paying customer, you cannot imagine the kind of happiness, the kind of enthusiasm that you get just when you, even if the customer pays just 2 rupees, right? And I'm talking about the real customer, not talking about your friends and families who will buy just for your own happiness. But a real customer, your first revenue that comes, doesn't matter how much big or how small it is, the kind of confidence that it gives in your own product is immensely high. That is where that is where your confidence boosts up, and you get complete. Uh, I mean, your enthusiasm just rises exponentially. I um, I can give you an example. Like Explore Routing is a product which was basically we went into B2C market initially, and it's basically a location-based technology product. So in 2013, I don't know whether if many of you remember, there was an unforeseen event. Just like I'm talking about disaster itself, because we are going through that disaster time right now, and there was a flash flood that happened in Kedarnath in 2013, and that many people actually unfortunately lost their lives. And uh, because we had this product which was more of a location based, we just had a conversation with the government of Uttarakhand at very high senior level, and they said, okay, yes, I mean, I think this is the technology, we should be using it for tourist safety. And just to when we have this conversation, we are actually kind of having discussion there. Then in the meantime, we also built few features, add few features in our product, which was mainly used for tourist safety. And now that particular product and that particular features, which for us it was a very small change because we were actually having that technology in the back end. That this particular product was actually officially announced by or launched by Tourism Minister of Uttarakhand, just because we were able to convince them, we were able to demonstrate them, okay, like this is how this technology can help tourists, and we are actually doing it right now. We are running into Uttarakhand for last 3-4 years, and this has been always been great. We are actually getting revenue, we are getting some prize awards and everything. That's a separate thing. But when the government recognizes that, okay, this is the product, we should be buying it, we should be using it, we should be recommending it to the people, all the tourists. The kind of pleasure, the kind of confidence that we got in our own product was much ahead than what we actually had earlier. So any paying customer, any recommendation or any people, because once the government recommended your product, the number of usages automatically becomes high. So that was a big boost for our company at that time.
So may I add to that, sir? And I
Yeah,
totally
please.
agree on that. It's that as a startup, we should try to tie up with the government, or should we not? That's a question to you.
Um, I would say it's a tough question to ask, depending upon um, your product first of all, and if you are looking to basically, I mean, there are two different kind of reasons you would like to tie up with the government. One is you validate your product. Um, Second is you want to make money from the government, and third is, okay, you want to like get associated with the government, and so that you can actually get some kind of a benefit out of it, right? The first thing, if you want to sell it to the government, it will not be that easy. By definition, if the government want to procure anything, they need to go by a tender process. I think they have a limit of 1 lakh or 2 lakh or something like that. If you are selling any services or any product to the government, which is much beyond that limit, 2 lakhs rupees, then they need to go for the tender. And tender means they need to put out every other specification in the open market. That means all the features, all the technology that you're using in the product will be actually in the open space. Anyone, and basically your whole idea, your whole concept is all your hard work which you have put in to build that product will be open in market. Every specification is within the market, and then after that, any technology company can actually build that, right? So going for selling it to the government will not that be a very good idea, unless you said, okay, like, yes, I can pay that service on a per user basis for 2 rupees or 5 rupees, whatever it is. There are different models that you can sell. But again, even in that case, the government says, okay, even if they pay you 10 rupees, they would like to own that product. So your product will not be on your own, unless you're able to convince that okay, I can sell them as a service. For example, just to give an example, um, they are buying their own for their own purpose. They are buying Microsoft Office, right? But they cannot claim that okay, Microsoft Office is their own. So they're actually uh, paying per license fee. So either your product has to be catered in that manner that you are actually giving them a license. And again, even in that case, even if they pay license fees, they will actually go out for a tender. So selling it to the government is not that easy. Now come back to the second point, tying up with the government just to get associated with them. It is relatively easy, but it is not that easy. It took us probably 1.5 year to, little more than 1.5 year to talk to different people. Even though we started from talking from the upper level, from the secretary level, which is IAS officers. But the government process, the filing and the file noting and file, and that actually takes a lot of time. That sometimes you say, okay, like this, it doesn't make any sense. So I would say a yes or no. It's very, again, it's depending on product to product, services to services. Difficult to answer, but um, your what I can say that okay, your experience with working with the government will not be that uh, pleasurable. Sorry, sorry. Does that answer your question, Anil?
Sort of, sir. Sort of. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Um, Now the next phase is follow your customer. Uh, Always, when you have a product, when you're selling it to a customer, always actively, proactively follow up with those customers. Try to get the feedback, because initial feedbacks, initial reviews, initial comments, whatever the customer wants to say, will change your product direction, and that is for good. So they always say, okay, like for MVP, build a product from your own mindset. But after that, always follow your customers. Customer is the best people who can tell you, okay, like how your product should look like, how it should work, what are the different features it should have. Always follow the customers, and that's how you can scale it up. I mean, after that, once your MVP is there, um, you're getting your feedback. Um, or give the highest priority to those feedbacks and reviews. Add to that your plan, whatever you planned. That okay, like I'll be adding 2 more features in this quarter. But if customer says instead of those 2 features, add these 3 features in next 3 months, do that thing. Customer feedback can guide you much way ahead than your own mind. So they are the actual user of your product. That's how you can best scale it up. Okay. So next slide is really just a cartoon, which I says, although just remember that entrepreneurship journey or startup journey is actually looks pretty good on the paper. It looks very good when you look at the successful customers or successful entrepreneur. It is actually um, very interesting, tough, and in fact, it will be testing of your own faith on your own products, on your own ideas. So it's always the curves, like okay, one day I get so much boost, another day I might say okay, like why I'm doing this thing. So there are a lot many days. There are a lot many sunny and hazy days. I would say, I mean, there will be days where you will see okay, like oh no, you will try to compare yourself with your friends that okay, my friend is working in this particular company, is doing very well. I'm still nowhere. But this is just a part of the journey itself. Be aware of that thing. But what you get in the end, trust me, it is much way ahead. As Anil said, it is much better than what your other person will get. Again, which this is a slide which I was talking Anirudh, actually. Um, being an being a graduate, you have 2 different options: whether you want to work in some kind of employee, some kind of company, or you want to start something on your own. So both has good things. Both have one is definitely when you're working in a company, um, you will actually have and in fact that goes with every part of the life. High risk, high reward; low risk, low rewards. So depending upon which journey you want to take. when you are working as an employee in a big company, definitely there will be job stability. There will be, in fact, job stability. I won't say, because these days job stability doesn't mean anything. But yes, I mean, you will have a good infrastructure, you will have a good environment, um, good coffee, tea, 9 to 5 job, this and that, um, work-life balance and everything. But you will not. I mean, you will be working on a product. You will be part of. You will be actually a small part of a big product, and you will not even know which customer or who this product. I mean, for whom I am building this product for. You will not get the entire picture. So you will just be in your own limited room. They said, okay, this is the feature, or this is a particular portion of product which I am building, but I don't know actually what the complete bigger picture is. On the other side, when you are entrepreneur, you are actually, again, you're following your dream. That's the biggest thing. But again, you decides which way your product should go. You decide the entire thing. You decide your market segment. You decide your customer. You are actually, in fact, you're doing everything. You are actually, right from um, you can say, uh, your CEO to your sweeper of the company. Your everything is completely on your own. You know every other stuff, right? Okay, I mean, that's the quickest learning and the biggest learning that you can do. You know everything, right from the finances, right from the HR, right from the technology. How do you sell? How do you business development? How do you get money? You know, you learn everything in probably next in few months. That's the biggest learning that you can. That is what Anirudh was telling, that okay, this is the learning which always take you much ahead of than other people in a longer run. So depending upon if you're looking for longer run, um, working in a small company or starting your own company is always better. But again, as I said, it comes with a high risk, right? There are good chances that okay, the product might fail in the market, so you will not have anything. You need to start looking for a job. So whatever it is, I mean, basically, it's a if it is high reward, there's always a high risk as well.
Thank you.
And this is, I mean, I'm done with this. Thank you. Any question that anyone would like to ask? This is the time.
Yes, students, if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask any questions on startup or starting your own journey, please, or any discussion or any points of intersection that you might have. Please shoot up. I have a question, sir. How difficult is our sales? Getting your first customer, how difficult it is? What is the, how do you get your first customer when you have a startup?
Um, it is not easy. I would say. The best way is uh, whatever. I mean, uh, you might be building your product for some of your customer, right? Whether it is B2B or B2C, but try to engage your prospective customer right from when you're building your product. Send them updates, send them just send them. I mean, talk to them more frequently or send them emails. That is the best way, because there's a good possibility that okay, probably somebody might have shown interest in you when you're building a product. Might say okay, probably I don't need it now, or they might say uh, that okay, I need it earlier than that, what you can release. Or you can actually say, they can also say, can you customize this product for me? So earlier you start to engage your customers, the better, or the shorter will be your sales cycle. And the first customer is definitely, yes, that's the most important, and that takes time.
Guys, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask any doubts. Okay, sir. I think we should end the conversation here.
Sure.
Many thanks. I'll get back to you after the class.
Okay, sure. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anirudh.
Thanks. Bye bye.